The following announcement has been paid for by the WZWA Network.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the WZWA Network, and welcome to my review show here of Impact Wrestling's Sacrifice pay-per-view here from March 24th, 2023 from the Clair College in Windsor, Ontario, Canada. Interesting situation that Impact Wrestling have found themselves in right now, and I will dig into that as I clean my glasses. I'm also drinking a cold beer with my brand new Sable beer cooler, or stubby holder as we call it here in Australia. So here we go. Okay, let's start things off. The countdown to Sacrifice, the pre-show. Eddie Edwards opens the show taking on Bhupinder Gujjar. So finally seeing Gujjar for the first time in quite some time. I think the last time I saw him was that segment with Bobby Fish many moons ago. And what happened to Bobby? Like, he didn't stick around long, did he? I didn't have a lot of notes for a lot of these matches, so I apologize. But I'll try not to go too long with this review, but this was not a bad match. But even though you knew going in that Eddie Edwards was going over, it's a foregone conclusion that I complain about a lot with AEW. One note I had was that Tom and Matt on commentary, they never annoy me, ever. My favorite color guy right now is Wade Barrett. My favorite play-by-play guy is Joe Galley at the NWA. But as far as a team is concerned, I think Tom and Matt are my favorite commentary team in pro wrestling, because with every team, it seems to be some sort of reason why that they're not my favorite. I like, the guys there at NXT, Booker T, and I can't remember his name right now, but they're good. But I think Tom and Matt are definitely great team. They don't fuck up at all. They don't annoy me whatsoever. Eddie wins in a nice short match. It's just like, is this one of those matches? They're just starting off the show, and I had no problem with it. And then I find out that Josh Alexander has vacated the Impact Wrestling Heavyweight Championship after 300 plus days. And man, I couldn't believe it. This is me not keeping up with Impact Wrestling on, the weekly show and all that stuff, and on the internet. So to find out then and there, I'm like, my God, like, after all that time that they've spent building that title up with him, and now they've had to vacate it. So it'll be interesting to see how they pivot. Gia Miller backstage with Frankie and Rich Swann, whatever. The main thing there that was interesting was the fact that Gia Miller looks hot tonight, bro. Coming up next, the final match of the countdown, KiLynn King taking on Rosemary. So again, not watching the weekly television for Impact Wrestling, you find out things happen between one pay-per-view to the next, because, there's only so many hours in the week, so I can't watch the TV. But the titles have changed hands from the Death Dolls to KiLynn King and Taylor Wilde. Disappointed, not with who the new champions are, but what about the Hex? Were they only just brought in just for one show? I think that's a bit of a shame, because, again, I've said it so many times, they need more women's tag teams in Impact Wrestling. It seems like it's always the situation, like with the Influence and Inspiration, it seemed like they were the only two women's tag teams at the time when they were feuding over the belts. So it seems like they always have like just two teams feuding, and there's no other teams, so the division isn't competitive. So I don't understand why the Hex aren't still there doing their thing. I think KiLynn King has a lot of upside, and I think she will be a singles champion very soon in pro wrestling, especially after some of the matches I've seen with her and Camille at NWA. But Rosemary gets the big win, and it was a cool match. It was cool. All right, let's move forward. We get to the main pay-per-view here. Speedballs, Mike Bailey, not Speedball, Speedballs. No, Spaceballs. If you know, you know. Spaceballs Mike Bailey takes on Jonathan Gresham in the rematch that I expected from the last show when they wrestled on the pre-show. I thought that a rematch was necessary between the two. So an interesting filling out process as can be expected to start the match. And as the match wore on, you're like, mate, Ring of Honor pure title, eat your heart out. Like, these are the guys that should be in that division in Ring of Honor right now, not fucking Wheeler Yuta. Gresham showing short flashes of heel work. I like that. A little bit of psychology there. There was a situation where, you know, Mike Bailey's getting a little bit frustrated with Jonathan Gresham showing these little signs of heel work, but, you know, saying my bad, trying to shake the hands. And then Mike Bailey started to push him. The pushes that Mike Bailey gave him looked very weak. Just saying. Mike Bailey's very good at everything else, but him shoving someone looks really, really weak. But that's the only like real, you know, nitpick that I've got of the match. It was a very good match. Another thing about Jonathan Gresham, you know, I've always been, you know, very, you know, I've always given, you know, high praise to him, I suppose you could say. But his matches are always so different and interesting from anything you see on any show. And I guess that's by design. He's been able to, in this massive world of pro wrestling, able to make Jonathan Gresham matches. You know what I mean? Like, they're just different. Every time you see a Jonathan Gresham match, you know it's going to be different to every single match on the card. And I had a random thought. I'd love to see him wrestle somebody like Batista. Like, how would Jonathan Gresham, this guy he's not the tallest man in the world, but how would he go with his manipulation of joints and his knowledge of submissions and chain wrestling? How would someone like a Batista deal with a guy like Jonathan Gresham? Just a thought. He always takes hold of the match, and it's always at his pace. It's always the psychology of the match. So it'll be interesting at some point to see if, you know, Gresham could be put in a position where he's thrown completely off his game. You know, that psychology that some opponents in the future need to think about to make it even more interesting than it already is. It's such a science. Everything he does is such a science. So there you go. Look, I'm blowing heaps of smoke right up his ass. They were given a lot of time here for this matchup. Yeah, I thought it was a bit of a weird ending to the match with a figure four leg lock, but you know, again, it just felt like it came a little bit out of nowhere. So you know, good match to start the show. Gia Miller interviewing Brian Myers, whatever. Some of these interviews, I don't know what it is, but when there's an Impact Wrestling pay-per-view, when they have the backstage interviews, half the time I'm not really paying attention to what anyone's saying. And it's not just because of Gia Miller being so hot, but a lot of it can be, the verbiage can come across a little bit cookie cutter, you know what I mean? So coming up next, the Digital Media Championship is on the line. Joe Hendry taking on Brian Myers. I didn't write a lot of notes. I only wrote 4 notes. That's terrible. The thing is, I went to a concert last night and I had a few beers, and I knew when I got home that I needed to watch this pay-per-view. And I got home at like 11:30 at night. So I was being really lazy with my note taking. So my memories of the match, it was a great back and forth match. I'm not giving you a lot there, am I, ladies and gentlemen? But you know, Joe Hendry is over with that crowd. He's won my, you know, interest, respect. He's done a good job, and the character pops. I think he will be a future Impact World Champion if they keep him around, you know, for some time. And he retained the belt, but you know, again, I think Brian Myers, something needs to change a little bit with the character, the most professional wrestler or whatever he's called. Something's just not clicking with me. He's very generic. I mean, I would say go down that road. Be way over the top with the fact that you are the most generic, bland babyface heel, whatever wrestler that there is going today. Be as bland as possible. I mean, he should change his name to John Smith. That's how bland his character is. And I'm not knocking him. I think he's a really good wrestler and all that, but something about his character just does not take off for me. Gia Miller, again, backstage with Mickie James, who has a broken rib. She can't compete tonight. I mean, interesting situation, really, that both their world champions all of a sudden got injured within, the same period of time. So we'll see what happens. I'm glad that she's not, relinquishing the belt. I'm sure the broken rib will heal very soon, as opposed to Josh Alexander's injury, which sounds like it's going to be a little bit more time for him to recover from that. Coming up next, Gisele Shaw taking on Deonna Purrazzo in another rematch from the previous pay-per-view. I think Deonna is so close to outgrowing Impact. And this is a thing that happens with a lot of people that have been on that roster. It's very prevalent that a lot of them outgrow Impact and they need to go to somewhere bigger. And I wish Impact could get back to where they were. But it seems like it's probably a little bit impossible at this stage to get back to that, I guess more of a, global level. Because right now they're just national. And I just feel like a lot of people have lost faith in the company because of the Dixie Carter era and all that stuff and all the things that went down, at least, 8-9 years ago. So this is the problem with Impact, that people will come along, they'll be there for some time, they'll outgrow Impact and they'll need to go to a bigger company. And I think Deonna probably needs to go to NXT, to be perfectly honest with you. I think that would be very interesting to see her go there. So, it's weird, right? It's not weird, but okay. So Gisele Shaw is a trans woman, right? And I didn't know that. I didn't know that until I read it online. I had no idea. I thought Gisele was naturally born a woman. But you know what? It feels like no one seems to mind or care, because she's built the exact same way that women are built. That's why I didn't know for so long, because she looks exactly like the size of and that's a Filipino thing, I think. A lot of the males over it, in places like the Philippines, they could be very, I guess, feminine looking. So it helps, right? With that kind of thing. But like, people make such a big deal out of oh no, I've forgotten her name, from AEW. Sorry, let me look it up. So Nyla Rose, that's it. Because I kept thinking Nia Jax, and it's not Nia Jax. Nyla Rose, it's the Nia that I was getting confused with. People make such a big deal about it, but I guess it's because Nyla Rose is a big woman. So people make a big deal out of it, whereas Gisele, I've never seen one negative comment about her online. But either way, this was a very good match, one of the best on the show. And I even wrote a note during this match, like, whatever happened to Tasha Steelz? Because again, I don't watch the weekly product, so I don't know what's going on. But I noticed that she had been missing for some time, and she's got Savannah Evans at ringside there with Gisele. So still just wondering what happened with Tasha. Compliment here to Gisele Shaw. The mounted punches are solid. When she's on top, good work. She's really picked up on her aggression and her intensity. She's, from when I first saw Gisele Shaw, a little bit soft at the time. Now I feel like she's got that intensity that she, has been looking for. It's kind of like Natalia Markova from the NWA. She's really picked up on that kind of way of, performing her offense. So this was great drama in this match. And I feel like this is a great call from Tom Hannafin. And in the end, Deonna Purrazzo got the win back over Gisele. She was attacked after the match by Savannah Evans, and Tasha Steelz made her return. So I'm like, okay, well, there she is. So it was a good return segment for Tasha Steelz. Let's move forward, everyone. Kenny King, who is like, running buddy with Eddie Edwards during this long, winding feud with the one and only Canadian Frankenstein, PCO. Again, I didn't write many. For the rest of the matches, I wrote more notes, but at this point of the night, like it was about 3 a.m. when I was still watching this, so I've only written about 7 notes. But, I thought, PCO needed this win big time because he's taken a few losses over a bunch of pay-per-views. And there was a sweet dive by Kenny King on PCO early-ish in the match. The part where PCO just did like a suicide dive flip through the second rope onto the floor, onto nothing, that popped me so much, man, because it's just like it sells his character. He sells himself so well. Like he is a Frankenstein that can't be stopped. I think that's extremely cool. He's taking all these bumps on the ring apron again. Like, I just don't know how this guy does it. I really don't. Like, he's just insane. Like, I don't know how this guy keeps going the way he does with the bumps that he takes, but, this guy's a soldier. He's a warrior. And one of those unsung heroes from the pro wrestling business, I must say. He gets the win as he should have, and let's look forward to that showdown with him and Eddie Edwards. Backstage, Rich Swann, Frankie Kazarian, and Steve Maclin talking about their big 6-man tag team match later on. Whatever. Nice, though. Nice that they're threading a story through the show. Very cool. But sometimes I feel like, they could do a little bit more with the backstage stuff. Maybe they do it on the weekly TV show, but I think on a pay-per-view, it doesn't hurt to add a few more pre-tapes on the show just to make it a little bit more interesting. Like there's a whole world that Impact is living within, and you get to see people arrive to the arena, things of that nature. It just takes a second to do one little bit here, one little bit there. Coming up next, Impact Wrestling X Division Championship match. Trey Miguel taking on Lince Dorado. This was a really fun match. I'm not really big on this style, as I've said so many fucking times. But I feel like with the Impact Wrestling X Division, whoever does the agenting for it, they do a very good job to make sure that they don't do a lot of things that insult your intelligence. And I thought Lince really was shining in this, and he was wrestling like he needed a job. So I hope he gets a job out of this because I think he really worked hard. And those two took each other to their limit. Again, though, why does that referee have one long sleeve and one short sleeve? I still want to know. So again, I've never seen much of Dorado before until now. I'm guessing he was in WWE in a tag team. Was he in like the Lucha House Party or something like that? So I don't know a lot about him because I guess they were never on pay-per-views and I only watched the pay-per-views. But I thought he was very good. The Super Rana from the top rope was fantastic. A great shooting star press, and this is one of my favorite parts of the match because it implemented psychology. Miguel gets hit with the shooting star press. He rolls to the outside to protect the finish. That's what you would do. You get hit with this thing, you might not be able to kick out, but there's a chance that you can roll your ass over. And he managed to get himself out the ring. I reckon in AEW, sorry to pick on him, but I reckon if that happened, they would have just had the person kick out of the finisher instead of have them roll to the outside like that. So that's one of my main pet peeves right now in wrestling is like people kicking out of fucking everything. It's insane. Anyway, one little nitpick was I hate the spot where someone's got their 2 feet on the second rope in the corner, and then someone grabs their head and tucks it in between underneath the top turnbuckle, and then they can't move. It's so dumb, man. I wish people would stop doing that shit. But anyway, Trey Miguel gets a surprise win. Not a bad finish at all, motherfucker. Backstage, Gia Miller interviews Shane Haste and Bad Dude Tito from TMDK. To me, this is funny, right? Because a lot of you might not know, but Shane Haste, I I've known Shane Hayes since I was about 13 years old. He grew up in my city, Perth, Western Australia. We've actually had a few tussles in backyard wrestling. When I first started pro wrestling training, he used to drive me to training. So I've known him for quite some time. So it's just, you know, you get a bit of a kick out of seeing somebody that you know on a wrestling pay-per-view, especially when you're from the most isolated city in the world, Perth, Western Australia. It's weird. I start feeling like as the show's wearing on, I'm starting to think this feels like really thrown together at the last minute. I guess it doesn't help that there were some injuries, but yeah. And also Gia Miller again looked super sexy. Coming up next, Impact Wrestling Tag Team Championships of the World. The Bullet Club of Chris Bay and not Austin Idol. Ace Austin, for fuck's sake. Why would it be Austin Idol? You can. They take on TMDK, which is Bad Dude Tito and my homeboy, Shane Haste. And Shane, if you see this review, I'm waiting to have you on the podcast. I've known you for so long. Come on, mate. Give me an hour of your time. So I guess the Motor City Machine Guns lost the belts between the previous pay-per-view and now, just like the women's tag team titles. So again, fault of my own for not following the weekly TV. That's okay. It's not a big deal. Bad Dude Tito, you know what? He reminds me of WCW Saturday Night legend, Rick Fuller. A smaller version, though, but because Rick Fuller was a big bastard. This was a passable match. Not passable sounds like an insult. It was good. It wasn't amazing. It wasn't shit. It was good. Another question I always have is like, do people still care about the Bullet Club? Like at this point, like, does it matter? Like, who's even the leader now? You know, it just seems like this is a thing that's just been carrying on for so long, and it feels watered down. And people go on about, oh, the NWO had too many members, got watered down. Yeah, but you know, NWO was around for like what, 3 years? Like, how long's the Bullet Club been around for? I always think the Too Sweet stuff sucks. You know, like I'm really not big on pro wrestlers like utilizing stuff that we know from the past, especially when Montez Ford does the sucker and all that stuff. It's just painful to me. Like Kevin Owens doing the stunner, like to me, like I don't dig it. Like, do your own thing. You don't need to take things from things that were that popular. Yes, in pro wrestling, of course, you take a little bit from here, a little bit from there, whatever, but you don't need to take things from Stone Cold Steve Austin or the NWO. It's too popular. But if I were WWE, I would sign Bad Dude Tito. I thought he was pretty good. And I have to say, I am very proud of Shane Haste because, you know, again, he's from my city. He made it to the big time in WWE. Here he is on Impact Wrestling's Sacrifice pay-per-view. Very proud of him. One nitpick, Chris Bay. Oftentimes he'll do at least one thing that annoys me. I hate the spot where someone's off the ropes and then they duck a clothesline from someone, and after they duck with the clothesline, they do a fucking somersault plancha over the top rope to the outside on the opposing tag team partner. On their opponent's tag team partner on the outside. To me, that's just so, it's stupid. Because if this were real, someone's throwing a clothesline at you, you've ducked, you've opened your eyes, because that's what you would do. You wouldn't like duck without closing your eyes. It's weird. But how would someone in a split 1/16 of a second realize that they could do a dive and jump over the top rope on the outside? Like when you lift your head up, you've got barely any time to even realize that there'll be someone right there, just so appropriately right there. What are the odds that they'd be standing right there on the outside, the perfect spot for you to do a dive? I don't like stuff like that. That's just me. Really impressed with Tito again with the deadlift gut wrench into a gut wrench powerbomb. Really cool. But this was a foregone conclusion. We knew the Bullet Club were going to win this. And they hit the 1-2 sweet for the finish. It was a good match, though. It was good. Okay, coming up next, we've got 2 matches to go here, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your time again. Bully Ray taking on Tommy Dreamer in a busted open match, which is a first blood match. So I did like the angle from the previous show. Thought the segment went too long, but that's okay. I was interested in this match. It felt like the only match that had real heat on this show. And I thought, I bet they nailed this. But one thing I don't like, I hate Tommy Dreamer's fucking pants, dude. I don't like the yellow polka dot pants. I think they're stupid. I don't know why he doesn't just wear what he used to wear in ECW. Just do that, Tommy. I just don't like those pants. I feel like it makes you look too silly. It's hard to take you seriously. I don't know. It's just me. So this Dan McCarty, let me Google that. Let me Google that. Dan McCarty NHL. I don't know who he is. Or is it Darren McCarty? Is it Darren? Perhaps it's Darren. Anyway, former NHL player is at ringside, and Bully Ray starts fucking with him. He like grabbed his drink and threw it on him, and you knew that he was going to get involved later. There was a fun spot in this match with a step ladder where Bully Ray went for a splash off this very small step ladder, and he just planted, right? And then after that, Tommy Dreamer hit the Dreamer DDT. But I think Bully Ray might have the best front bump in wrestling history. Honestly, the way he does it, you know, he's got one head to the side. It's just like his arms are dead. It's so perfect. He's really nailed that bump. And no, I don't think anyone else will ever be able to pull off a front bump like him. But this match was the palate cleanser that I needed because, you know, I wanted a little bit of blood. I wanted a little bit of hardcore. I wanted some thumbtacks. I wanted some fucking tables. I wanted some chairs. You know, I needed that at this point because, you know, I'd just gone through the last 2 matches were, you know, the high flying style with Trey and Dorado and Bullet Club and TMDK. So again, I like the fact that there's different flavors on Impact Wrestling Park and pay-per-views. Right. Bully gets busted open. Hotch and Skylar, the good hands or whatever they're called, the great hands, the good hands. They come out to help Bully. They're clearly just useless lackeys of his and don't really have a lot of effect on the match. Bully utilizes some mind games as Tommy's about to fucking get him with a cheese grater and make him bleed even more. And he manages to convince Tommy not to do it, mentioning his daughters, and then he low blows Tommy Dreamer. And then some more shenanigans take place. Dreamer ends up pissing out with blood after Bully Ray has, you know, wiped his blood away with a hand towel. And what do you know? The referee had been bumped. He came to, he saw that Tommy was bleeding, and he rang the bell. So Bully wins. I wonder if there will be a rematch. I would not be offended if there was some sort of, even if they did a tag match with this hockey guy, because he gets involved after this, but, you know, some sort of tables match, maybe at the next pay-per-view. You know, I would prolong this feud because I thought Bully and Dreamer did very good in this match. Thought Dreamer was going to go through the table. McCarty ends up trying to get involved. He must be so excited. He must be a wrestling fan. He's just hell excited to be involved in this. Has a nice little hockey fight there with Bully Ray, which I thought was nicely done. Like he sold it. He made it look really good. But then, of course, he gets attacked by the lackeys, the good hands. And then he cops a powerbomb through the table, which, again, that was a very cool spot. And after that, Scott D'Amore comes out. And he comes out with some backup and Bully's on the mic talking shit. And Scott D'Amore gets in the ring and ends up hitting a fucking destroyer in Canada on one of Bully Ray's lackeys. Did not see that coming. And Bully's face was absolute gold. But is this leading to Bully Ray versus Scott D'Amore? Like, I'd hold on to that for a while. I'd let Tommy do maybe 1, maybe 2 pay-per-views with Bully. Maybe Scott gets someone else to try and. I'd wait to get to Bound for Glory and do Scott D'Amore versus Bully Ray in a street fight. That would be very cool. Something different, you know. Anyway, let's get to our main event of the evening. It is Time Machine, which is the Motor City Machine Guns and Kushida taking on Steve Maclin, Rich Swann, and Frankie Kazarian. So obviously this was taking place because Josh Alexander is injured. And I don't know how long he's going to be out for, but surely Maclin versus Alexander in some way, some form happens at this year's Bound for Glory, depending on when Josh gets back. You know, you can't prolong it that much if people have been expecting it. To be perfectly honest with you, I don't know why I thought this, but I thought I would have made this six-man tag for the championship. That's just me. You know, it would have been something a little bit different, like, you know, the teams teaming together, but at the same time, like, I can't let Kushida win because I want to get the pin and win the championship. So that might have been like a way to give more heat to this match, because this match did not have any heat for me, because the only heel in the match was Steve Maclin. Everyone else is baby faces. I don't know if Time Machine are heels or not, but they don't wrestle like they're heels. So I think Kazarian is living his best life right now. Very happy for him that he's finally getting the opportunity to in the last part of his career, I've said it heaps of times, but to show what he's still got left in the tank, instead of just being wasted away again in AEWville. Motor City Machine Guns, I think they need to be put in the main title program for something different, the world title program. They're still a team, but man, it would be good to see them like just step up and get into that main event scene, I think, because how many times can they go for those tag team titles, you know? If not, go to fucking WWE, because that's a whole different thing that they have not conquered yet. And time is ticking, man, and time is money. So the psychology of Maclin being greedy as a teammate was one of the only stories really being told in this match. Time Machine were clearly a well-oiled machine. And I thought Steve Maclin should have got the pin in this matchup. But I guess they're giving Kushida a win here. So when Kushida and Maclin wrestle at Rebellion, you know, maybe you won't know who's going to win. But I thought Maclin should have been up in this one, but that's okay. The one thing that I've got to complain about with this match, though, did not like the way that Kushida locked in that hoverboard lock, which was set up with Saban, where they did like a roll-through pin on one another, and then Kushida jumped out of it to lock in this. That was so unnecessary. Like, all you had to do was just run at him and jump and lock it in. Like, why did you have to go through this stupid thing where it's almost like it was almost like a victory roll in a sense that Saban was doing on him, and Kushida pounced out and jumped on him. It's unnecessary shit like that in wrestling that really fucking annoys me, and pushes away casual fans, because they'll look at that and be like, oh, this is bullshit, fuck this shit. You know, you give them a reason, then you're going to lose them. That's just me. But there we have it, everyone. So, and again, sorry, the six-man tag was a very good main event. But there we have it, everyone. My review here of Impact Wrestling Sacrifice 2023. Again, this show felt like, I guess they had to pivot on a few things at the last minute, but it just felt very thrown together. Like, a lot of the matches felt, for me, like they didn't have a lot of heat, except for Bully and Tommy. And Gisele and Deonna had a little bit of heat on it too. But most of the things on this show just, I don't know. It wasn't like the best pay-per-view that they've done. Still, though, a fun show to watch. I'm going to give this one a 6 out of 10. So I feel bad that is such a low rating, but it is what it is. I'm looking forward to seeing where they go next, because, you know, with so many things up in the air, let's see how the company pivots, let's see how they go creatively. So there we have it, everyone. I'm Karlifornia. Thank you so much for joining us here on the WZWA Network. Please check out our Pro Wrestling Tees store, Thunder Mifflin, on ProWrestlingTees.com. Also, please check out the Ryzen Network, RIZON, Ryzen Network, www.ryzen.net. Or if you have MIRC32, go into a chat room on the Ryzen Network called #Pro Wrestling. There is a great plethora of wrestling fans in there to talk to about pro wrestling 24 hours a day, 7 days a goddamn week. I'm Karlifornia. Thank you for joining me here tonight, and we will see you down the freaking road. Thank you.
WZWA Network, that's the way we play. Good God Almighty. WZWA Network, that's the way we play. Get puppies. WZWA Network, that's the way we play. Get.
The following announcement has been paid for by the WZWA Network.